And then and after I read the entire legal update, I still had questions. So and one of the parts was, if you want to know more about copyright, go to the copyright website. So that's what I did. I went to the copyright website, and I want to go over with you the basics of copyright, because even if you don't need them for real estate, it just makes you smarter. Okay. So it's a type of intellectual property that protects original works of authorship as soon as an author fixes the work in a tangible form of expression. Okay, so you don't have to wait until the author sends in a form and it gets approved or does this. It's automatic. Anyone who fixes the work in a tangible form of expression that meets the conditions of a copyright has a copyright the minute they put their information out there, their picture, their whatever. Okay, so there's lots of different kinds of copyrighted things: paintings, photographs, illustrations, musical compositions, sound recordings, computer programs, books, poems, blog posts, movies, architectural work, plays, and a ton more. So there's a lot of things that fall into this category. And I guess the question that I didn't know when I started was, do you have to register it in order to have a copyright? And the answer is no, you don't. But the answer is if you don't register it, you have a copyright with no enforcement. So we're going to get to that. Okay. So a copyright has to have some originality, and it has to be fixed on something. Okay. So original works are original when they are independently created by a human author and have a minimal degree of creativity. So they're not looking for a huge degree of creativity, but something. Independent creation simply means that you create it yourself without copying. The Supreme Court has said that to be creative, a work must have a spark and modicum of creativity. A modicum isn't very much. It's a little. But that's required. So you can't just write something that has no creativity in it and say, well, I copyrighted those words. No, they're not creative. They're used in speech all the time. Okay, so there are some things that are not creative: titles, names, slogans, stuff like that. Everything is not necessarily creative. And so it wouldn't lend itself to be a copyright thing. Okay. A fixed work is a work when it's captured, okay, in a sufficiently permanent medium such that the work can be perceived, reproduced, or communicated. So if you don't have something that someone else could do one of those things for you, you don't have something that needs to be copyrighted. When you write it down and record it. So as soon as you write it down and publish it, then it's it's out there and it's yours, and you have a copyright on it if it is found to be creative enough, have a modicum of creativity, and to be, not copied from anywhere else. Okay.
What's considered published?
Well, I mean, I don't think if it was just in your drawer and you never shared it, I'm sharing, I guess, is what I'm talking about. Without sharing it with anyone, we don't have this conversation. So, because no one can copy it if no one's seen it, right? Or no one could use it or do whatever. Okay. So everyone is a copyright owner. Anyone. Once you create an original work and fix it, like taking a photograph, writing a poem or blog, or creating a new song, you are the author and the owner. So, companies, organizations, and other people besides the work's creator can also be owners. So you could work for a company, and most companies have this in their hiring packet that says that anything that you invent or any copyright you do while you work here is ours. So they could be the owner even though they didn't actually do the work. Okay. And you can have contracts, you can obviously contract for someone to make you something that would then be yours and not theirs. Okay. So what rights does copyright provide? Okay. Copyright provides owners with the following exclusive rights: to reproduce, okay, to prepare derivative work based on the work. So you could take this and you could take part of it and, make something else, but someone else can't. distribute copies or phono records of the work to the public or for sale or whatever, perform the work publicly if it's literary, musical, dramatic, or choreography. You know what I'm saying, a pantomime or a motion
Choreographic.
picture. Pretty
Choreographic.
craft. Yeah, I guess that is that word. Okay, thank you. Display the work publicly if it's literal, you know, you can display it publicly, you can perform it publicly, whatever. But so these are your rights. You are the only one who could do this, the person who made the form, the person who made the image or whatever. Okay, you can also authorize others to use it, right? Of course. Okay, so what's copyright registration? Okay, copyright exists automatically in an original work of authorship once it is fixed, but a copyright owner can take steps to enhance the protections. And the most step is registering the work. Registering a work is not mandatory, but for US works, registration is necessary to enforce the exclusion rights of copyright through litigation. Oh, okay, you don't have to register, but if someone else uses it, you can't enforce it. Oh, a lot of good that does you. Timely registration also allows copyright owners to seek certain types of monetary damage and attorney's fees in a lawsuit where someone used their copyright. So that's a big deal, is that you can't really enforce it if you don't register it. Copyright registration also provides value to the public overall. It facilitates the licensing marketplace by allowing people to find copyright ownership information. So if I want to use something, I can look first. If it's not registered, I'm not going to find it, and I might not know that it exists. And the only place to register it is the United States Copyright Office. Okay, so that is that, but I want to just really quickly talk about, because again, same question I would have had, which is, I've heard of something called patents, or I've heard of trademarks. How is that different? How is a patent or a trademark different from copyright? So patents protect certain inventions or discoveries, designs for articles of manufacture and plant types, varietals. Valerie, how do you pronounce that one? Varietals. So those are different.
Varietals.
No pictures, no whatever. It's something else. You can patent something that you do. Okay. Trademark protects words, names, symbols, or devices. So people trademark their names. They trademark their pictures for their name and that kind of thing. But it's not. And a trademark, I guess, could also be could also have a copyright as well. But those ones have to be registered in order to say you have a patent or a trademark. You don't get it automatically. Okay, so that's the basics of copyright law. I know it's not very detailed, but it's kind of all we need to know. Okay, now we go to the Q&A. What is copyright? They do the same thing. The work must have some element of originality and must be at a minimal level of creativity. So it has to have originality and creativity. Okay, what kind of protection does it provide? Okay, we just looked at that. I'm not going to go over that again. It provides, that you're the only one who can do all these things with your copyright. Okay. Copyright infringement is unauthorized use of the copyright work. If the following, if done without authorization, are examples of copyright infringement: making copies of a copyrighted work without authorization from the owner. So let's just say that you buy a little book. It's not a big book. It's just a little book. Trying to think I can't remember the name of it, but it's really short. The 7 people or 4 people you meet in heaven. I can't remember the name of it. But something like that. And it's very short. And say you love it and you want to send it to your sister who lives in New York. So you Xerox the book, because it's not that many pages, and then you copy it. I don't know if Xerox is the right word anymore. You copy it, and then you email it to your sister. Have you committed an infringement? Well, you have, because you've taken someone's book and you've copied it and given it to someone. So that would be an infringement of their copyright. How they would know, I have no idea, but it is. I mean, and really they're looking for people who do it whole scale. They copy it and they sell them down, on the street corners or something. Developing derivative works based on incorporating portions of the copyrighted work. So you can't do that. If you can't take one piece of it and say, oh, I really like the way they pictured this with the caption, and I'm going to use that, but I'm going to say something else. Can't do that. Posting a copyrighted work on the internet, regardless of whether internet users are able to download it. So if you post something that's copyrighted, instead of doing that, you love the book so much, you just make a website and you put, gee, I want everyone to read this book, that you can't do that. Okay. Okay, what are the penalties for copyright infringement? Several severe criminal and civil penalties for copyright infringement. In addition to criminal sanctions such as imprisonment, and the infringer may be liable to the copyright owner for the copyright owner's actual damages, which probably they have none other than if you copied it and gave it to one person, maybe the cost of the book, I don't know. The additional profits that you earned, if you didn't sell it, then you don't have any profits. Statutory damages up to $30,000, not something we want. We didn't sell it. We gave away one little copy. Me a couple, but don't charge me $30,000. So anyway, just be careful because there are big damages for copying these. And again, this becomes important because what's copyrighted are forms. And if you're giving them out from any website, then you're probably violating the law. Okay, now we're getting to our particulars. Are car standard forms protected by copyright law? Yes, they are. They're considered literary works of original authorship and thus are copyright protected. So if car forms are, then certainly all forms from all kinds of different users are. To make users of the forms aware of this, car standard form contains a prominent copyright notice at the bottom. However, it's not required. So just because somebody doesn't have that copyright notice does not mean that it's not copyrighted. Okay, may blank or partially blank car standard forms be photocopied, faxed, or emailed? Okay, so now we're talking about ones that are totally blank, and then they say partially blank. And I assume they say that because in order to even photocopy, fax, or email them, you have to put an address in. And so I'm assuming that would be considered partially blank if that's all you put in was the address. So no, you can't do anything with blank forms other than fill them out. Okay, you can't give them to someone. You can't. Now, if you wanted to give the seller or the buyer a blank form to say, hey, we're going to go over this next, when I see you next week or tomorrow or tonight, and you might want to just look at it and see what the agreement looks like. I don't think that would be a problem because you're using it in a transaction. I think we're going to get to that. It's okay to use them in transactions, but you cannot use them for anything else. Okay, may fully completed car standard forms be photo. So now these are fully completed. Okay, yes, now we have a fully completed form, but again, there are restrictions on this. As long as it is done in relation to a specific real estate transaction and is within the scope of the agent or broker's representation of a party. So your transaction closed last year and someone who's not a party to it wants a copy of your RPA or some document in your file. And the answer is you're not allowed to do that because it's not in conjunction with the scope of your representation of a party. You cannot give out the document. Again, I didn't say this, but I don't know how they know, but still you should basically know what the law is, because like I said, we have a case where someone just let everyone use their forms. He left his name on them, used them, and the agent's gonna turn him in because you can't do that. And we would be in a different position if someone wouldn't have given them the car forms. Maybe we would have used an agent. So anyway, but yes, for car forms that are filled in, they don't consider emailing a completed offer or a copy to be signed to be copyright infringement. However, a broker representing a seller in a limited service capacity. So now you have a seller who asks you to just put it in the MLS for them, limited service. We're allowed to do that. There's an agreement for that. And it says that, and all calls go to the seller. We don't do anything but put it in the MLS, like an MLS entry only. They should not provide disclosures or car forms that are beyond the scope of the limited representation. So just because you agreed to do MLS only doesn't mean you can give them your forms to use. You have to be the agent in the transaction. Fully completed, okay. May blank or partially blank car forms be reproduced or displayed on a website? Okay, I don't know, I guess I'm happy because I need it to be a little longer, but I think we know the answer to this. No, blank or partially forms may not be reproduced or displayed on the internet because, again, you're giving out our copyrighted information. You're giving people who have no right to it a copy of a form that you have to join the organization to get. Okay, is the zip form software copyright protected? Yes. Logic products, including zip forms, are protected by copyright law and are also subject to the end user license agreement, which you all know, which also makes it a copyright infringement to, they say it even though it might be the law anyway. May blank or partial car standard forms be printed in zip forms? No, you're not even supposed to print them. I'm reading this and I'm thinking, okay, so normally when I want to teach from a form, I don't know, I send them a blank form to myself. Am I really not allowed to do that? I don't know, because you're not supposed to do anything with them. But I can't imagine for teaching purposes, this could be a
It
problem.
says sample on it though, Cindy, when you do that.
Oh, unless you, right. But I don't even think sample, because then they're still getting a copy of this form they could copy. But no, actually, yeah, you're right. It does say sample, but usually I put an address in, so I don't get that. Okay, can the pre-printed language, oh, I don't know if anyone ever wondered this before, but as soon as I saw the question, I'm like, oh my God, I never even thought of it. But of course, it's because you can't. Can the pre-printed language in car standard forms be altered by the user in zip forms? No. Okay, so as soon as I saw the question, I thought, oh my God, they be? No, of course they can't. Otherwise, what would be, you'd have to read every sentence and every line if they could alter something that was part of the standard form. That's crazy. Okay. May car standard forms or car legal articles be reproduced or reprinted, such as in books or in educational materials? Permission to reprint car standard forms and other car material is considered on a case-by-case basis, and they want you to email them to ask if you can do it. I mean, I could see if you were publishing something in a newsletter or something that was going out to a lot of people and you were taking it off, reproducing a part of anything from car or reprinting it, I would think that'd be worth it. If you were just using it to teach a class, okay, may car standard forms be sold or offered as a separate product? No, of course they can't. You can't sell them. They're not yours to sell. Car could sell them if they wanted. But only car can sell them, the right to use them. So I think that's it, right?
So Cindy, one of the agents the other day said that she gives a form to her buyers so that they can go over them together. So
I mean, I still think if you're giving it to someone that's making an offer in order for them to understand the form better, I don't know, Terry, do you think I'm crazy? You got to be able to do that, right?
Yes, you can do that. The only thing is that, and what Valerie might have been referring to, and you referred to it earlier, and that is that the address that you're dealing with if you're sending it to somebody, and that's all that it's required on the contract is the address. So you could put their address on it and send it to them, and they could review everything they wanted to.
Yeah, and then it doesn't say sample either, I don't think.
No, it does not.
Yeah.
I use that in my training all the time.
And so do I. But if you read this, you'll think, oh my gosh, I never asked for permission.
Yeah, I always put in 1, 2, 3, 4 training way or something, and then that's the way I save it in my samples and things, and so they get it blank.
So we can do that. We can put sample, or we can put.
Or just put, if you want to send it to a buyer, put in the buyer's ad, put in, they probably know the address of what they're thinking of making an offer.
Not necessarily, no. This agent that discussed this on our Neil's interview says she does it. She sends it the residential list purchase agreement to all of to every client, and tells them to look it over and come back to her at the next meeting with questions, and she specifically wants them to look at stuff having to do with inspection time periods and stuff like that.
But when she sends it out, doesn't it print as a sample with sample across it?
She didn't say that.
I would think that unless she puts something in it, she either has to have the name of a client or she has to have an address in order to print it as a blank the rest of the
So
way.
we could technically just put in their buyer's name,
Right,
Yes,
and
Right.
that would suffice
right.
for this rule.
And then, yeah, I mean, it said partial, but I mean, you got to, right? You got to be able to give this to your buyer to look at.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else have any questions?
I was gonna say a long time ago, it's not a question, but a long time ago, before they made all of the changes on this, we used to be able, the computer was so dumb that if you put 2 periods in the address, it would go out that way. And that was the address. So it was very, I mean, you could do almost anything you wanted with it. I do have a question for you though, Cindy. And when you very first started, you brought up the fact that there had been an offer written, I guess, and it had more than one, but it had 2 different people on it, and neither of them were the agent that printed the form. Is that correct? Did I hear that right? Or
It was, let me make sure I get this right. Right, it was an offer written for someone who was buying without an agent. And an agent who works for like one of these new home builders gave them the form, left his name on there, and just the forms have his name on it. He's not, doesn't represent the buyer or the seller. There's no agents involved in the transaction.
okay, so that is copyright protected then, and somebody could actually turn him in.
Yeah. Oh, no, for sure. I think our agent is going to turn him in.
Good, that, because they should be.
She's very mad.
Should be remedied, yes.
Yeah. I mean, the transaction didn't go anywhere, but we have a ton of stuff with his name on it.
Yeah,
Yeah, so be careful because there are a lot of people who want to borrow documents. I mean, I see it from time to time. And so you really, you don't have to be rude or anything. That's all you have to do is blame it on Carr. They have copyrighted their documents, and if I give them to you and they find out, I could lose my license. So I mean, I doubt you could lose your license over that, but
yeah, besides that, Cindy, we're friends. I wouldn't do anything wrong with all of these blank documents, right?
yeah, try not to turn me in, Terry. Anyone have any other questions? I hope you guys learned a little something about copyright. I did.
No, this was good to know because I had clients who said, oh, well, can't you just give me the disclosures and I'll, pay you whatever.
But again, don't you have to give out the disclosures?
Yeah, but they didn't want to pay the commission. And I said, no.
Oh, you mean without us being yeah, of course. That's what, right. And I got to tell you, we're doing the same thing. We can't have an agent for the seller because it's sellers who are fighting, who are never going to agree. It's just crazy. No agent for the seller. We're still selling this property. We're in escrow for about the 4th time we're opening escrow. So, and it's because the sellers are nuts. So, you have no idea how many conversations I've had with the seller and her attorney. Anyway, so we have a consulting agreement with one of the sellers because one of them won't have anything to do with us. And so we're not involved, but we have no way to do car forms. So I say to them, well, fine, you don't have to have an agent, but what are you going to do? How are you going to counteroffer? How are you going to do an addendum? What happens if you need a car form? So far, they're having the buyer draft everything. No matter what we agree to, the buyer just drafts it. They have an agent. The buyer is an agent. So anyway, just very
Cindy,
weird.
we have a new number now because we're a new company.
What kind of number?
DRE number for the company.
Yes.
Oh,
And hopefully you're all using it because I had to transfer 7 listings on Friday that were taken in the last month because they put the wrong DRE number.
where can we find it?
01849354. I know it on the keyboard thing. But you can find it. Do you have, I don't know if you have access. I have it up on my top little screen thing to the,
On
to
the
the-
agent resource
the
guide.
resource guide. Yeah.
Just go to your forms and put it in one time and it'll drop down from then on.
Please make sure everyone's using the right DRE number, because otherwise it doesn't pull into our feed and then it messes up and then I gotta transfer it. So, yeah. And I think we're across the board. All the boards are changed now to Century 21 Masters. You should all be in the right office. If you aren't in the right office, let me know. But I think pretty much we got everybody done. So. Okay, well, it's 3:57 and that's close enough. I am here all week. Terry's here, Robert's here. I don't know. I see we got a lot of stuff here. So please reach out and if you have any questions and let us know.
Hey, Cindy, before you go, can I just remind everybody of something?
Yeah.
In fact, Robert's probably got something going out on this pretty quick, but next, not tomorrow, but next Tuesday at 12:15, we're going to have a Zoom link with a probate attorney and a title company that's going to give an hour presentation on probate and how they're put together and what you need to do with them and what our responsibility is and all that type of thing. And so it might be a good thing to stick on your calendar. I've been trying to remind people about it, and I'm sure
Great.
we'll have some flyers going out, but
Yeah, it's a little complicated, and whether or not you've ever done a probate or not, it's again something. It's just education, something you might do, and then you'll say, "Oh yeah, I remember when he said this. Can't remember what he said, but I know I got to look it up."
there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Next Tuesday on the regular Zoom at 12:15, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this Zoom, same Zoom we're on now. Okay, thank you, everybody, and again, let us know if you have any questions. We are here.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Cindy. It was
Thank
great.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.